Thank you for tuning in to the Financial Empowerment Charlas, created by Nationwide in partnership with the Hispanic Heritage Foundation to help in your journey towards financial wellness. In today's chat titled Mind Over Money, we will be discussing how, as Hispanics, our mindset regarding money is shaped by our upbringing, our values, and how that combination can affect our sentiments around building wealth for the future. I am Paul Roldan, certified financial planner, and I'd like to welcome my two friends to discuss this topic. Vivi Schenk, financial freedom strategist. Welcome, Vivi.
Thank you, Paul.
And Karen Vergara, fiduciary financial advisor. Welcome, Karen.
Hello.
So let's jump right in. One of the things I've noticed in the 20 plus years that I've been working in the financial industry is the fact that for Hispanics, depending on the reasons why you're in the U.S., whether you immigrated, your parents brought you here, or like myself, you were born in this country, we all have different ways of looking at money, which ultimately influence the decisions we make around money. What's great about today's conversation is that we have the three different perspectives present with us, including one person who immigrated directly, one who was brought by parents, and myself who was born here. So let's start with Vivi. Vivi, tell us about your perspective. What brought you to this country?
Yes, so I'm an immigrant. So the reason that I came here is because I was in a bad financial situation and I didn't know what to do. And I basically wanted to escape my own reality. And I moved here hoping to find something better. So I was hoping for a better life. I didn't really necessarily know what it meant or what I wanted. And I think many of us experience this, that we don't truly necessarily know what we want. We just feel inside of us that we want something better. We want a better opportunity. And the U.S. is worldwide known as the land of opportunities, right? So I just decided to come here. And looking back, though, I realized that when I moved here, my mindset around money was very based in this feeling of I need to survive. Right. So I would get any job that I could get. You know, I wouldn't necessarily fight for the perfect job or a job where I felt 100% happy or confident or knew that I was valued. I would just take whatever I could so I could make some money and I can pay for my basic necessities. This new country is scary. So the mindset was always survival.
That's wonderful. And thank you for being transparent with us and our listeners today. So you came looking for better opportunities. When you got here, there was a little bit of fear, a survival mindset, which then influenced your decisions into not necessarily pursuing the optimal job or opportunity, but whatever you can get settled, but in pursuit of something better. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Now, let me switch gears, Karen, because I know you have a different perspective because although you're also an immigrant, your parents brought you here when you were younger. So what would you say is your perspective when it comes to building wealth?
Yes. So my parents, like you said, brought me here and my sister. I was 12. We are from Colombia. And my parents wanted just a better life for themselves and for their daughters. And so I feel like I am old enough to realize the lack of opportunities we had back home, especially in contrast with the opportunities we had here. So I feel like I am part of this immigrant mindset coupled with first generation mindset of just understanding that, hey, back home, things were difficult, they were hard, and here we are, and we can live the American dream, right? And it was interesting because I realized how difficult it was for my parents, right, to move here, a whole new system, right, a whole new way of living, of creating wealth, right? And so when they moved here, even though they were educated back home, they moved here and they had to start from scratch. Even though my mom was in her 30s, my dad was in his early 40s, and they had to start from scratch, making minimum wage, and in order to kind of sustain the household, right? So it's kind of like survival, but hey, we can at least give you the basic necessities so you can have a decent standard of living. So without a doubt, I think that that has definitely made an impact on how I view wealth. And I know, Paul, for you, it's a little bit different because you were born here to Hispanic parents. So how has that shaped your view of wealth?
No, thank you for sharing it, and I appreciate you asking my perspective. You're right. My perspective is a little bit different. as opposed to Vivi, I didn't migrate directly. I was born in this country, as you mentioned, Karen. So I didn't have this survival mindset from an economic. Yes, I grew up poor. Okay. My survival mindset was more from a demographic situation of my neighborhood rather than the finances. But I was in a different frame of mind when it came to finances and opportunity, because as a Hispanic American born in this country, I've never felt like I had any limitations. Okay, like I wasn't fearful of if I make this decision or that decision. It was more a pursuit of what decisions can I make? How do I optimize my opportunities? So, yeah, very different from what Vivi and maybe you a little bit, Karen, experienced.
Yeah.
I guess being born here, to me, the sky was the limit. You know, I wasn't pursuing the American dream in terms of something new. I was part of the American dream possibility, you know. So yeah, it was more of how do I optimize versus how do I come from a place of fear or survive. You know, I would turn opportunities away. I will be selective because this is what I want to pursue. So I appreciate you asking that. And you'll notice that those are very different perspectives. So again, Karen and Vivi, thank you for sharing, because we're immediately highlighting the importance and the impact that our cultural backgrounds do make. So what are these different perspectives? You can highlight the different ways we view the reasons why we make decisions that we come here. However, we have things in common, including our values. So while we may have different perspectives that we've just highlighted because of our experiences, okay, we do have some common values. Okay, so, you know, I'm going to go into that a little bit because, again, our point here is to understand that these values impact our financial decisions. So, Karen, I'm going to start with you this time. Can you think of a value that is prominent in our community?
Yeah, one of the most beautiful ones I think we have as a Hispanic community is that family comes first, right? We take care of our families, our abuelitas, our parents, our tíos, our tías, our primos. Right. We grow up around them. Many times we don't even leave our parents' home until we're older. And I think it's a beautiful thing, right? Family is so ingrained in our culture. And I that's definitely one of the most beautiful values that I think we have as Hispanics.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How about Vivi? What do you think with regard to a value that we may have in common?
Yeah, I think another value that we might have in common as a community is resilience. So whether we immigrated ourselves or our parents immigrated here to this country, I think there's this value inside of us of we need to overcome everything that we're faced with, right? So we've been faced by fears. Maybe we've faced rejection. We might maybe face discrimination. We've faced obstacles to be here and to stay here and to continue to live here. So we have this resilience that you know what, I'm going to make it work. So we're very ambitious and we're very vision driven. And I really believe that when you have a vision, you always get back up, no matter what. So we kind of have this whatever it takes mindset.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I agree with Vivi 100%. I think as Hispanics, one of the most beautiful things that we also have is this work hard attitude and I think it's because we understand how the difficulties that we can have back home. And so over here, we're here to work hard, right? We trabajamos fuerte to give ourselves and our children just the things that we probably couldn't back home. So I agree, Vivi, that is resilience, and this work hard attitude is one of the most also beautiful things that we have in our culture.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And I'm going to use what you just said in terms of another commonality, perhaps. You know, you said we had this, you know, back home, back in our countries where opportunities may not have been abundant. You didn't know what tomorrow was going to look like or if you were going to be around tomorrow in some situations. You know, so that I think I've seen a survivorship mindset or a focus on enjoying today and living today. Has this been common in your experiences?
I think also not necessarily as a community, but even as a generation, we have this YOLO mindset. So I think so, yes.
Good. And, you know, again, no judgment on that. And in future episodes, we're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of that type of mindset. But those are common things. You know, we've also known for people of passion, you know, so which is great. You know, so I agree. These are some great examples of the values that are important to us as Hispanics. So we've seen the differences in our historic trajectory, you know, whether you're immigration, first generation, second generation. We've seen some commonalities in our values. Now, what are some things that might actually be holding us back in our journey to building wealth, because ultimately the goal of these recordings is to show us how to build wealth, but we want to identify those things that might hold us back from getting there. So, Vivi, what is the sentiment that stemmed from your background that you noticed was hindering your view of wealth?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, this is what I realized as I continued to live in this country. I realized that I had this negative association with money. What do I mean with that? So back home, I remember that we lived in this neighborhood and a new family moved in, and they had evidently more money than the people around there, right? And I remember, maybe overhearing, I don't know if it was my parents with the neighbors. I don't really remember who were saying these things, but they were saying this like, it seems like they are probably in this kind of shady business. They're doing something that they're not supposed to, and that's why they're making all of this money. So I immediately assumed, so if you make a lot of money, you're probably a bad person, right? So if I am here and I'm trying to build wealth, I notice that as you try to build wealth, if you have a negative association with money, if you think that people that make a lot of money are evil, you will sabotage yourself. You will put roadblocks for yourself without even realizing it, and take step backwards. Maybe when you start saving, you end up spending all of your savings. You just don't notice it. Why? Because it's in your subconscious. Money is bad. Money will make you evil. Right. And I had to break that mindset, and I had to make this mind shift. And I'm thankful that I was able to meet wealthy people that they are really nice and they are incredibly generous. And that's when what my mentor taught me once finally made sense, and finally like engraved this, and like, this is true. She used to say that money, it doesn't change who you are, and it doesn't make you evil. Money just magnifies who you already are. So if you're bad with little money, you're going to be very bad with a lot of money. If you're generous, if you're good, when you have little, you're going to be really extremely good and generous with plenty, right? So it's this principle, faithful in little, faithful in plenty. Money is just a tool. It does not have personality, and it won't change you.
That's exactly right. No, that's great. And interesting, piggybacking on something you said, you said you had this negative perception and this family that moved in, evidently, it was very obvious that they had more money. So that created a chasm, a divide into they have, we don't have. Then you have come to this country and you realize money isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I'm wondering, if now that it's not a bad thing, are you trying to be like those to show that you have money? And I'm being very purposeful in this question because, the whole image that we sometimes look to put on once we don't believe money is bad. Have you had that in your experience, Vivi or Karen? Maybe start with Vivi again, just to continue it, where we actually try to show that we have some money where necessarily we don't.
Exactly. Well, I think thankfully, I experienced this already, and I experienced the consequences of trying to do this. This happened when I was back home. As I shared, I was in a tough financial situation, and it was precisely because of this. I was pursuing a business, but I didn't manage my finances correctly. So I got in a tough financial spot, and I didn't want anyone to know. So I had this facade, right? I kept swiping my credit cards and pretending like everything was okay. I did not want people to know. And I think I'm not the only one that fell into this. I think that as a community, we're a proud community, right? We're proud to be Hispanics. We're proud to be Latino, Latinas, right? But unfortunately, we've also been faced with discrimination. We've also been faced with roadblocks, particularly when being in this country, right? And this messaging, they might not have told us directly, but we have this idea like, you know what, you're not worthy, you do not belong here, right? And I think that as proud people that we are, we just won't take that. We won't take that, and we feel this sense of, you know what, I'm going to prove my worth. I'm going to prove that I do belong, right? So that's why we fall into trying to flash our worth by trying to prove our worth by flashing material possessions or by flashing the ability to, go to fancy restaurants or travel. We have this need and this need to put a facade.
Right. No, that's powerful. And Karen, I know you could probably share a bunch of stuff on this because you're talking about, I'm proud to be Hispanic, and that's great, to be Latino. But then we don't want to be categorized as one of the have-nots, right? We want to be seen as one of the haves. And by that shapes my mindset, the decisions of buying stuff. And then you come to this country where it's kind of easy to buy stuff. And we do that. Karen, have you experienced that at all?
Yeah, so I have an interesting story to tell about that. My husband, he's from Venezuela, and he moved here as an adult. And so he was an accountant back home, but here he started in construction, and he was making $12 an hour. And he had a dream of buying a Camaro, right? A brand new Camaro. So he had $10,000 in the bank. He goes to the dealership, and guess what? They sell him a Camaro, right? So he puts $10,000 as a down payment, has a $300 or $400 monthly payment. And for him, I know my husband very well. And for him, it wasn't so much of the facade that he wanted to show others that he could do this, but it was really to Vivi's point, improve to ourselves, right? That he now in this country can buy himself his dream car. And the unfortunate thing is that it's a depreciable asset and he bought it on credit, right? So he didn't understand the ramifications of that in regarding his financial journey. But nonetheless, he fulfilled his dream, right? So we have to be careful of that, because then we fall into consumerism trap, right? Where because we can, we buy, okay? And then there's another sentiment that I also deal with, and I wanted to share with you guys, is that in my case, I feel like because my parents made such a big sacrifice to bring us over to this country, that I now have to really live the American dream, right? And so I think that when left unchecked, this sentiment around money can be detrimental and not really helpful. So in my case, I feel like I've been able, through education, to learn the ways to fulfill the American dream in a effective way. But there are times when if we don't check the sentiment around money and the reasons why we're building wealth, that it can actually be detrimental.
That's powerful. And there's a saying that success is 90% mindset and 10% action. So we started this conversation, saying we're going to focus on mind over money because there's beautiful things about our culture, about our people, that make us, define us who we are, that bring the powerful, diverse thought process, diverse, sabor, if you will, to this melting pot of a country. Okay. But then at the same time, as you just finished hearing, there's some things that bind us together with some commonality, but then there's some thoughts that might be detrimental to our financial success because it doesn't work here in this country. It doesn't work to take advantage of the systems, to growing wealth. So, one of the biggest things that we need to start thinking about is ourselves as we start pursuing a path to financial wellness is how do I reconcile who I am with who I'm becoming? Okay, and this is the paradox of success. How can we take the good of our upbringing, those family values, that passion, that's part of our cultura, and combine them with the opportunity to create generational wealth for the future? Okay, and changing that mindset that, Vivi talked about, going from surviving mindset to a thriving mindset. So this is going to be the goal of these charlas, of these episodes moving forward. Thank you for tuning in. Karen, Vivi, thank you so much for sharing and being transparent. Look forward to having some future conversation with you guys. And be sure to check out other episodes at foryourfinancialwellness.com. All part of the Financial Empowerment Charlas created by Nationwide in partnership with the Hispanic Heritage Foundation. Thank you.